Okay, Henry, in 3 seconds.
Why is it not live?
Ready?
You can see Henry from.
Boys, you got to shut up, alright?
Is it go?
Yeah, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, my name's Henry. This is my project pitch. So I came up with 3 initial ideas. My first idea was to do a script for a film that I've been kind of nurturing and coming up with the idea with for the last year or so. My second idea was to continue doing a radio play that we did in a previous project. So I really quite enjoyed doing it, and I think it pushed my writing ability, but I feel like that'd be one of the easier things to do, and I kind of want to push myself and challenge myself. And the idea that I am going for is an experimental film concept. And so I came up with the idea when I was walking down the street, and I saw someone that was lost his hat, and because the wind blew it away, and he kind of disregarded it. And then someone else followed up and saw it, and kind of they took as they saw it and picked it up, they kind of got it seemed like they got an instant obligation to get it to the guy. And when I saw this, I thought it's interesting how different people's moods dictate their actions, and I wanted to explore that and see how I could display that. As my inspiration, I watched the film Wonder because I heard that it had multiple perspective telling attributes to it. What I learned from it though was that they didn't quite use unique kind of styles for each one, which is something I'm intending to do with my project. But what I have taken away from that is that I'm going to try and do 2 versions to see which one is better. One that is a lot more subtle editing with the colour gradient and composition and that sort of things. And then one that is a little bit more unique for each perspective to see if what I found from watching the film, that it could be a bit messy, is true, if that makes sense. Yeah. So I did a bit of location scouting. I visited 3 places, Baddow Recreation Park, Baddow Park Track, and then Underpass. I've decided that I'm going to go for the underpass location because I think that I can use the underpass's kind of environment to my advantage, as it's a shadowy area. As the person disregards their hat, that's when they'll kind of look from looking out into the light and then walk into the dark. And I'm hoping to use that kind of shade to reinforce that kind of feeling. And it also has a crossing over, so as my goal is to kind of show the big picture of these different people's moods and perspectives crossing over, I feel like it's quite appropriate that I actually use something that is crossing over. So this was the underpass, the place that I did choose. This was the second location, which I like the idea of having that kind of this being the happy pathway perspective person, and then the bleak back here. So I came up with a couple of ideas of how I can use it in different places. And this was another place that I looked at. So this was a storyboard. The basic kind of sequence of things happening would be the sad person walking down the street and losing his hat, and then I would go through the sad perspective, which would be kind of setting up who he's about, and following through here, and then come through, find the hat, connect it to the guy, come bring it to the guy, to the sad person, and then I had a third perspective, which is a bystander who is going to be a bit of the middle ground between. So I figured, as I mentioned, there's kind of 2 ways I could tell the story. I have one that's a little bit more heavily edited and a bit more kind of unique for each perspective, and then one that is a little bit more subtle. The one that is more subtle, I think, would jump between the perspectives a lot more, whereas the one that is more heavily edited, I would have each perspective in bigger blocks, so that you kind of get a stronger feel for each one instead of bouncing about, and it wouldn't be as messy as so this is the colour grading that I did some research into to try and get a better understanding of, which was part of the reason why I chose this idea, because I wanted to develop those skills. So I had a try at doing a more happy perspective, which is I lifted up the yellows and the greens, and and then that was the original one in the middle, and then here is the sad one, which I brought the blues and some of the purples up a lot more, and then kind of killed some of that yellow out. That's the logistics. For the equipment, I'm just going to need a camera along with my tripod, a light reflector to help kind of use the light and alter it to how I want it, the fishing wire and some tape to recreate kind of the wind taking the hat away so that it can't be seen because fishing wire is thin. Then I'll need a microphone because I intend to do internal dialogue for each perspective, so I'll need that to record the dialogue. The budget I'm looking at about £50, which will mostly just be kind of travel and catering for the cast. The cast I'm intending to use mostly my friends because I'm very comfortable with them, so I can kind of direct them a bit more strictly, and I know that's fine because I've been very close with them. But however, I would like a larger diversity of actors because they all are similar age and kind of have similar interests. So they dress the same, whereas ideally I would like a bigger diversity between them. So I've done several tests. I've done a camera testing and kind of rehearsal just to get an idea of the kind of shots that I take and how I set it all up and everything. A lighting test to get an idea of how much exposure is coming into the camera, to see how much I have to play with when it comes to the editing process. So I have got a few concerns. The first one being repetitive shots, as I'm doing the same sequence over and over. I'm worried about some continuity problems with the clouds and the kind of crowds around it. I'm worried that you'll be able to see people about, so I'll have to be I'm making sure that I'm shooting in a quiet place and kind of just being aware of my surroundings to make sure that everything syncs up nicely. Another thing I'm worried a bit about is the actors, because as I said, they're friends, they're not actual actors, so if their performance isn't up to scratch, I might have to find ways to work around that. I might either get them to do it again, or I will fall to my backup plan, which I'll go on the next slide. So my backup plan is to work on my script idea for this film I've been working on, which has some similar themes to the experimental film that I would do. It's about a scientist who's creating an AI, and his desperation to be successful has led him to kind of commit betrayal to his daughter, AI daughter, and it's about him kind of trying to figure out the right thing to do and how he kind of slowly realises that his actions were wrong in the past. The main reason I'm doing this project is because I do find it very interesting to look at people's moods and perspectives, and that's heavily influenced that. And I want to just kind of show that bigger picture of people's moods and perspectives crossing over. And that's pretty much everything. Has anyone got any questions?
Well done, Henry. Taylor, can you just get the light? I do have one question. Sorry. Yeah, Henry, that was really, really good. Well done. You pretty much covered most of the stuff I would say needs to be included. You spoke about stuff like contingency plans. You spoke about like, what happens if things go wrong. You spoke about what I really liked as the colour grading stuff, so well done on that. In terms of influence though, like, what would you say your influence is for to make this project and to... Has there been anything you've done previously that has sort of inspired you to do the project you're doing now? Or?
Not majorly anything really driving me. It's more just, I've always had quite an interest in kind of psychology, and just I like to kind of observe people and kind of see how they're moving and everything.
You like to observe people?
Yeah, a bit of a people watcher. So it's more a bit of just kind of indulging my own personal interests, to be honest, alongside pushing my own skill.
Okay, cool. Does anyone else have any questions for Henry? No? Okay, well done.